I now call the February 11, 2014 work session of the Riverton City Council to order at 7 p.m. Would Councilmember Fabian lead us in pledge, please?
Thank you, Mayor. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Would the city clerk please conduct the roll call?
Yes, Your Honor. Councilwoman Mary Ellen Christensen.
Present.
Councilman Kanan.
Here.
Councilman Rich Gard.
Here.
Councilman Jonathan Fabian.
Here.
Councilman Todd Smith.
Here.
Councilman Kyle Larson.
Here.
Mayor Ron Wartness.
I am present. Thank you. Okay, I declare that we have a quorum this evening. The approval of the agenda. The chair would entertain a motion for the approval of the agenda as presented.
Your Honor, I'd move to approve the agenda.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. At this time, we would have a Volunteers of America Center of Hope presentation. City Administrator's report, please.
Yes, Your Honor. I'd like to introduce Heath. We've had quite a few conversations, and over the last couple months since the merge from the Fremont County Alcohol Crisis Center, and he's come in front of the council tonight just to talk about some of the excitement that they've had in the last year and what we can celebrate about, and then also just a little bit talk about what to do with the building that they currently are in and the possibility of some expansion. So I'll turn that over to Heath.
Mayor and Councilman, it's great to be back here with you.
Could you state your name just for the record?
Yes, Heath Steele. It's great to be back here this evening. It was about a year ago, almost to date, that we were in here talking about the preliminary proposal of an acquisition with the Fremont County Alcohol Center merging and being acquired underneath the blanket of Volunteers of America Northern Rockies. And I'm going to share some statistics, and I'm going to share some data, and then I want to talk a little bit about maybe what the future opportunities are to help continue to address this issue. I'm humming for some reason. Address this issue that we're working with in the community, and I know all of you are charged with trying to find some solutions for as well too. I know that our team, I have Kelly Buckingham with me, who is our clinical division director, and Merle Yellowkidney, who is the program director over there. I know our staff had submitted per contract a second quarter report. I will draw your attention to the first page of this report. There was there was an inversion of numbers. Currently, we have 10 individuals who have left the Center of Hope for residential substance abuse treatment. Now, when I presented to the council a year ago, my hope was that if we could impact 5% of the top 75, which was 3.5 individuals, it was felt that we could mark it as a successful year. 6 months into the merger, 10 individuals are off and attending residential treatment. 10 individuals are attending in-house outpatient treatment. We have had a clinician in the program, which is the first time in 13 years that those clinical services were available here in Riverton at that program. We've had 20 folks enrolled in the PATH program once we were able to acquire that grant from the Department of Health, and we've got 22 individuals who are in social detox, in a true clinical definition of social detox, not a revolving hit the floor, be out the next morning, that have gone through. 22 of those are enrolled in vocational rehabilitation. So I think for your belief in us and our team's belief in the program, while the results may always not be seen downtown, the impact is occurring here in the community. I want to share with you another document that I brought with me tonight, because I hope that there can be a few moments of celebration on this. This is not an internal document. This is the Wyoming Department of Health Behavioral Health Division issued their mental health and substance abuse services outcomes report generated by IDA Consulting. It's an independent entity. I just want to share a few things with you. General satisfaction of services, Fremont County Alcohol Center, is up from 69.5% to 76%. Services available at the time of need have gone up from 83 to 92%. It's also noted in here that the substance abuse center with the greatest improvement was the Fremont County Alcohol Crisis Center. There's about 14 pages of this. I won't take all your time on this. What I will say is that in every service area, the Fremont County Alcohol Crisis Center has risen percentage for percentage between 2012 and this year into 2013-14. What I thought was the most interesting were the significant jumps in questions like I, not the staff, are deciding my treatment goals. I believe that the staff see me as a partner has jumped significantly. Felt comfortable asking questions about treatment and medication has jumped significantly. Staff encouraged me to take responsibility for how my life is. Over 80% agreed with that question. Under self-assurance, again, is up. I was looking for a few of the last couple important ones. Staff were sensitive to my cultural and ethical background. Race, religion, language has taken a significant jump to 75.5% of the folks served. There are a bunch of these. They measured 14 different areas. One of the most significant jumps, and again, led with this, is I am better able to handle things. Client's perspective went from 59.6 to 74%. I'll share just a couple last with you. I'm able to deal better with crisis, 59% to 75%. This is what I thought was interesting. From the regular clients who are enrolled in the social detox program, question was, I spend more time with people who do not use drugs and alcohol, and went from 44 to 66.7%. So anyway, I wanted to share that with you. A lot of times these become shelf documents, but knowing that this has been a hot button item and this was a very significant acquisition, you trusted a well-known treatment provider, a leader in the region, to come in and acquire a local service. And what I want to be able to do is demonstrate that the team has come in and done what we committed to you for your investment in. And I'm very proud of the staff over there. We talked about moving that program from one that saves lives to changes lives. And I don't know that any of us had an expectation at this time that 10 folks would have gone off to treatment out of that program. We still have a few doing very well in treatment in our facility in Sheridan. We have a few that have gone to outside facilities who are doing well, and maybe someday they'll be in a position to come share their story with you. That leads to the dialogue that Stephen Weaver and I have been meeting regularly, talking about what the needs are. Chief Broadhead and I have had the opportunity to have regular dialogue around the needs here in Fremont County. As I'm sure you folks are aware, we did sell the hotel building up on Federal for significantly less dollars than maybe it was anticipated during the acquisition that the property may be worth. Unfortunately, there were probably a significant loss of investment for the past provider there as well too. What I've been talking to Stephen about is there's obviously needs in the community, and what we had committed to during the merger was to invest the proceeds of the sale of the hotel back into ensuring we're providing the services that are needed here in Fremont County. Stephen and I've been having conversation around the complexity of us being able to do what we need to do over at the current building as it stands. We have done a substantial remodel to the building, which does belong to the city of Riverton. We've made it safer. Staff safety was my number one priority in creating barriers and putting in cameras and looking at officer safety, staff safety, ambulance safety, the folks that would be in the building serving clients. We've made some very significant investments this year. We have some more investments we would like to make. We're obviously under contract with the city to rent the building at a very, very reasonable rate. However, we were unclear as to what the process would look like for us to be able to go ahead and begin investing revenue from the sale of the hotel into that building, and if that was even something the city would entertain. I had pitched the idea to Stephen that maybe there would even be an opportunity for Volunteers of America to acquire that building that we're in and take the liability out from underneath the city if we were willing to enter into an agreement with the city that would restrict us either through title or lien or deed to continue to provide the same services in that building for an extended period of time that would be fair to both parties. I have a multitude of ideas, but I guess I want to throw that out to you as mayor and the council to help guide us forward. I have had dialogue with Chief Broadhead about the necessity to design a building that would allow for both sheltering, social detox, and potentially some sober living. We're obviously dealing with a very by HUD definition, a chronically addicted homeless population. And until we can look at aftercare, and until we can look at some type of non-permanent but stable sober housing, I'm just not sure. We can get folks through treatment. I'm not sure what the next step is, and particularly with availabilities of affordable rentals. So we do have a broad vision of looking at the building. I have an interest in a Sallyport type area where we can protect the dignity of the client as well as the safety of officers and staff as they're bringing folks in. I have an interest in an area that folks who are maybe, I hate to use the word not too high to comply, but are below the legal limit, who could come in on a cold night and have a place to just hang out, warm up, and then I have a vision of being able to expand our current services to meet what's needed. I am reluctant, though, to just start down the rehabilitation process in a building that belongs to the city, as we need to figure out permitting and liability and what that would look like, and ultimately how we would both have an equal investment. So without a whole lot more rambling on, I realize this is a work session and there's folks behind me. I am definitely open for questions or dialogue, and we can move forward from there. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Steele. Does the council have any questions of Mr. Steele at this time?
Your Honor,
Councilman Guard.
is there room sufficient for expansion that you want on that site?
With the small amount of due diligence I've done, I believe that in consuming the yard and looking at setbacks, we would be able to do what we want to do and bring the life safety codes up to where they need to be.
Good. Okay. Any other questions? Yes.
Sir, sir, I'm new to the council, so I mean, I may be asking a couple of dumb questions here, getting myself up to speed. But as I read through your report, I'm probably like everybody else. I mean, I think alcoholism is a huge problem here in Riverton. On your page here where you talk about intakes, 839, does that also count? Are those separate individuals, or are those also include like repeats?
Looking at this second quarter statistics, it would appear there were 94 individual unique admissions and 839 intakes. Now, I don't have the exact number with me. That is a significant reduction from this time last year. FCACC was averaging about 31,000 intakes a year. We appear to be on track to be somewhere around 12,000 in our reduction. But yes, that the only unique ones were the 94. Part of what I would want folks to keep in mind is that you've got to move through a continuum of care. And I believe there has been a misconception with this program. you've got to be able to go on to the next step after you become clinically appropriate to either go to residential treatment or IOP or outpatient. That doesn't mean you're going to necessarily stay sober. And part of what we're seeing in this is folks who have gone out to the community and done an outpatient group or have received services may relapse and come back in as well too. What we're not seeing is the frequent flyers that I saw a year ago as we were here doing the due diligence.
And another one, and again, this is just me, but on your page where you listed your funding, you listed tribal revenue and then listed zero. Now, is that because it was only zero in the second quarter?
Correct.
So there's normally been tribal funding there and it just was not there for that quarter?
This is the first time, to my knowledge, when we presented to the city in June, was that budget time? We presented to the city in June. We were able to secure a $21,000 commitment from the casino. That would have come in the first quarter. We also received a commitment and booked from the golf tournament and some small. This would indicate there is no contractual dollars coming in.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else have any questions?
Your Honor,
Yes, Councilman Gard.
I would just like to thank you for the effort that you put in. Your building's located in my ward,
Okay.
and I travel past it 3-4 times a day, and I do see a significant improvement, and I appreciate the efforts. Although we're a long ways from where we need to be,
Yeah.
I do appreciate what you're doing.
Well,
Thank you.
thank you. It's been very surprising. You know, we did 3 things real quick. 1, we painted the building. 2, we built the safety barriers. 3, we tried to clean up the outside and get the stuff out of there that was there. We went in and built some offices for the clinicians. I would encourage anyone to come out, tour the building, feel free to come over. We want to show you what we're doing. If you don't know what's going on at the program, it's hard to have buy-in. And sometimes those stories that you don't see downtown are alive in there, and you have a chance to see where the struggle is. It's our hope to continue to improve it, and we have what I believe is a good plan, but thank you.
Thank you.
I was just interested in having some of your clients come and share stories. I think that's always powerful when you hear someone that's been there, done that, and are recovering. And I think that's just a powerful story that we're missing many times. I share Councilman Gard's concern about the size of property, if it's large enough for what your need is. And I too drive by quite often, and have been very pleased with the improvements that I've seen on the building. Sometimes just a coat of paint just makes all the difference in the world. It really lets people know that you're alive and well and are improving things, and I think we needed that. You mentioned that you have 22 that are in vocational rehabilitation. Now, is this with the Division of Vocational Rehabilitation, or is this in some other program?
It is not with the department. Volunteers of America was able to secure the PATH grant, which is a funding mechanism for individuals with mental health challenges or substance abuse or homeless challenges who can go through and receive case management, counseling, and referrals here in the community. And we were able to acquire that grant simultaneously with an October 1 rollout. And we secured that here in Riverton as well as in Sheridan. So that's in there. And to circle back to your first question, in fairness, we've done a very small amount of due diligence to lot size. I did not feel comfortable until we briefed the council on what our hopes and desires were to explore too much around lot sizes and start shaking when you start talking about expanding a building, it has a tendency to get ahead of you before you get your due diligence done. So.
No, I can't speak for the entire council, but I certainly have seen that as a need of that program for a number of years. And so I think, speaking for myself personally, I would be very supportive of anything you can do to expand that program. We have the resource here in terms of alcohol abuse, and I think anything that we can do to deal with that's a step in the right direction. What is your greatest need at this time, do you feel? And then what's the greatest need of your clients? They're
Yeah,
probably not the same thing, but
Well, I think they can be one and the same. I'm going to go to the client piece first. I think the one thing that is lacking, and lacking even in the region, is safe, sober housing. We're very blessed in that I'm used to working with a continuum of care with our programs, where we have detox, residential treatment, and aftercare or transitional homes all located on the same property. One of our challenges is you can get somebody sober and you can get somebody warmed up and you can get somebody started down the right path. But when the street's the only option or back to the family, you're just going to start the cycle over again. So I think looking at real sober transitional housing, which I would hope that this addition would be able to bring some consideration into that, I think is a step. For our clients, number one, I think, is to realize that, addiction doesn't know social economics. And for our clients, it's starting out at the base value and getting the programs in place that they need. I think we've been able to address some of that clinically. I think we continue to address some of it medically. Particularly with immediate access where needed without using the emergency room as a doctor's clinic, which is not where we want to be. We're going to continue over the next few months to look at our staffing and continue to look to see if there's an option for a nurse case manager in the position. And they need a lot of support. I mean, there's AA going on there daily. There's NA going on there. One area that in Riverton, I think I'm hoping to see a continued enhancement of is a recovery-centered community, a community that is friendly to recovery and one that our clients can embrace as they get settled down. I also have had discussions with the chief that I want us to be able to step up our transportation ability. We talked about that during the merger. Chief Broadhead's been very supportive with some options around radios and helping ease transportation to maybe where we can take some burden off his staff as well.
I was pleased to hear your remark that you might be willing to accept people in, especially in the wintertime, that maybe don't really meet the definition of someone that needs your facility at that time, but they do need some place to spend the evening. I was just appalled, to read in the paper of the individual that froze up to death in our park. And yet, in talking to some of our officers and whatnot, they suggested that, well, they could see this coming. Well, if you could see it coming, for goodness sakes, it looks like we as a sentient beings could do something to prevent it, and just to have that happen is such a failure on all of our parts. So I was delighted to hear that you're looking that way possibly as well. So.
One of the challenges, Mayor, to maybe speak to that for a moment, and feel free to hit the buzzer if I'm taking too much time, but maybe to speak to that for a moment, Mayor, couple of thoughts. We have looked at what was a very substantial, and I'm going to use the term maybe banned list or not welcome back list. We have gone through and we're looking to change the culture of our vocabulary. There are going to be clients who are maybe not appropriate to be readily admitted. They may need to be medically cleared. We may need law enforcement engagement, but I'm looking for our staff to bring in folks who need services who are appropriate to be in the facility. One of the challenges that I see here in Fremont County, and I'm used to continuums in communities that have warming shelters or emergency crisis shelter beds, a place where someone who is not intoxicated can go get a warm bed for the evening. And we found ourselves filling that niche. And I'll be real blunt, is we talked through the budget. Social detox runs about $155 a day is the state average for a true social detox bed. And that's with clinical support and at a level 3.2 care. As the council is aware, this program is heavily funded by the Department of Health to the tune of a little over $600,000 to provide those social detox beds. We, in partnership with the city and through the enhancement of your dollars last year, were able to add these close observation beds. I told Stephen I would not come back for more money this year, and that we would work to move forward with where we were. I do think this warming or safe, I want to call it a shelter bed. I don't even want to call it a warming bed, but I think it's a concept with growth of the building that we need to explore, because there is a population here in the community that are intoxicated, or not intoxicated, but are homeless. And, we run, and I don't want to side switch to Sheridan for a moment, but our homeless shelter in Sheridan has 32 beds in it, and we run a steady population. We run a veterans contract. We actually run about 45% homeless vets in that program, but the rest are civilians from the community. And I think homelessness is continuing to be on the growth. The problem is the studies aren't here to say there's 10 on a given night or 15 on a given night, and maybe that's an area we can begin to see some enhancements so we know what the numbers are.
Okay, thank you very much. Does anyone else have any other questions that they've thought of?
Your Honor,
Yes.
I've just in what we've been talking about, the favor of expansion of the building, I guess it'd be nice to have some sense from the council if you're generally supportive of that, so we can start looking at that option. The second one was also turning the property over to VOA. Obviously with the deed restriction, it would require them to stay and provide that services for a length of period of time. But I don't need a yay or nay, but a consensus from the council would be nice, so we could at least look at those options and see if it'll work.
I think you know my feeling on the subject, so.
Your Honor, I'm in favor of both of those solutions.
Me too.
Yes.
I think we need to do what works best for VOA, as long as we make sure we protect ourselves as well, so.
That was basically just an empty building before we had the use for it, and so.
Well, thank you, and I guess Stephen, you and I can work together then, but what I'd like to do is be prepared to come back to either through Stephen or through the council with some thoughts on what a deed restriction would look like. Obviously, I'd like to see that deed restriction be kind of in alignment with our Department of Health contracts, just so that it protects all parties involved, but I'm not afraid to get creative so that we can meet the needs here. We've been here, served a lot of kids through Camp Postcard over the last 10 years, and we're not going anywhere, so it'd be nice to start moving ahead with addressing some solutions.
Okay, thank you. If we can help in any way, let us know.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Agenda item number 7, the Wyoming Modelers Park Association proposed land lease at Rendezvous Pond area. City Administrator's report, please.
Yes, Your Honor. On January 30th, Mrs. Wilhelm and I met with the Wyoming Modelers Park Association. They currently have a sublease for us up on the Honor Farm property north of Walmart, and we lease with Honor Farm, and then they lease from us from the city. In addition, now they're requesting for a lease for one of the city ponds, which I call them the Rendezvous Ponds. I don't know if that's the current, what they're really called, but I call them the Rendezvous Ponds, off of Eastman Road, to operate remote control boats and water aircraft. And attached, we've put several maps so that you can see some of the pictures of what's on that property, and then also a map of the property they're talking about. They are requesting a leased area with limited uses. And some of those uses, first they'd like to put some gates up that wouldn't allow vehicle traffic. Obviously they'd open those up during their events. People could still walk around those, so it would just stop vehicles, so it wouldn't be complete access. Second, they don't want any swimming or fishing or partying happening in that area. I know there are a lot of parties down there. I've done a lot of campouts down there in the 1838, and I know that there's issues down there with a lot of partying, so I can understand their concerns for not wanting that. And they would install some signs talking about the restrictions that they would like down there. The association plan is to build a few improvements on the property, and that's the concern they have for the vandalism. From the picture, there are a few improvements already on that property. There's a boat ramp, and there's a little area of a little storage area. The Modelers Park Association would have insurance on the property. Another reason to limit the use because of their liability concerns. When they started the Modelers Park north of Walmart, they had always hoped that the area closer to the road they could use for this water area, but that there's just not enough water in it to make it work. When staff met with the Modelers, there was two concerns the staff came up with that we shared with them. First, this is a city property, and typically we don't lease out portions of the property to one group and have some restrictions. Public property is owned by everyone and should have equal access. The second is this is the only access on city property to the Wind River, and that was a concern. You can cross on private property or on 1838 property to get to the Wind River if you want to go that way. In the past, the city's leased out property like to the gun range and also for grazing purposes. People would still have access to the Wind River by foot, not by vehicle. The Modelers Park Association is a great organization that is providing recreational activities for both the old and the young. And obviously the purpose of this work session is to kind of flesh this out and see if there's a general consensus to either move forward or not. If it moves forward, then we'd bring it forth maybe at the next council meeting with our draft lease here. And they are here in attendance to answer any questions that you may have. And I don't know who wants to be the spokesman for is that Eddie?
That surprises us all.
And good evening to you. My name is Eddie Amend, and I am the founder and past president of the Wyoming Modelers Park Association. Good evening, Your Honor, Mr. Mayor, and members of the council. Particularly, may I, as a private citizen, welcome our two new council members. We are personally acquainted with everyone else and look forward to the opportunity to become personally acquainted with you two gentlemen, and pleased, I want to congratulate you on your appointment to the council. With that as a preface, I want to say that we have enjoyed a wonderful working positive relationship with the council in the life of the Wyoming Modelers Park Association. And with your forbearance, I'd like to introduce the members of the association who are here and offer a display so you have a better idea of who we are and what we're doing. Mr. Weaver, I thank you and congratulate you on your resume, your condensation of our discussion and our program. It's very well said. He gave us the summary. So if I may have a moment or two, as a courtesy particularly to our two new council members, if I can just kind of condense 10 years of activity for your interest and information, then we would welcome your questions as well. All of us here this evening, my name is Eddie Amend. I'm a retired professor at the University of Wyoming. Our president is Rich Hart. Rich, would you hold your hand up, please? Our vice president is Scott Jackson. Our treasurer is Dick Adams. An active member, Randy Edgington. We are all either active or former pilots, and Colonel, you can appreciate that. We have another active member sitting on the council, and we hope to wean Jonathan away from the helicopters and get him into boats as well with the rest of us. So why are we here this evening? I reiterate that we've had wonderful support. Those of us who are former pilots and fans of radio control started 10 years ago to look around for a place to pursue our hobby. There was no such. The family out south, the Griffin family, has a ranch, and they have been gracious over the years to allow people to fly out there. These are boats planes that you'll see the size we use. Some internal combustion engines. We're moving toward electric. But it's rather difficult to land a small plane where the cattle have been, and they let you know where you have been. We literally, honestly, sometimes took snow shovels out and cleared the cow pies to prepare a rudimentary runway. Wasn't really very satisfactory. So several of us began to look around for a place where we could perhaps establish a better facility. As Colonel Canan knows, if you're an airplane guy, you need a place to land. If you're a swimmer, you need a pool, etc. We located the space at the Honor Farm. We have had wonderful cooperation with them, with the city, the Honor Farm, which Stephen summarized for you. And it had been our hope when we established the Wyoming Modelers Park north of Walmart that we could have a facility there for the entire scope of radio-controlled sport, namely aircraft, groundcraft, and watercraft. We've got the aircraft and the groundcraft north at the Modelers Park, but as Mayor Warpness has kept reminding me, he's been looking for a man lake. Well, we now have the access to a lake, and that's our purpose in coming to you tonight. We are asking for your continued cooperation and support in developing this recreational niche for the community. In fact, it's a large community. Over the 10 years that we've been in operation, we've held regional fly-ins and have attracted flyers and car drivers from 7 states one year, 6 states the next year, and then the fuel prices went up and our out-state participation dropped. But our local participation is strong. We're small in number, but very active in operation. As we looked for a place to develop the watercraft side, we were fortunate enough to identify the old gravel pit ponds, which were at that time owned by Jerry, the contractor who had them. Then, of course, the intervening thing is the land swap. So that land moved from private property in Jerry's hands to the city's hands. That didn't change the character of the location or our need. It simply changed the character of the official permission to use. We have already been there 2 years with the permission of Jerry, and then the last year with the cooperation, and at that time your friend and our friend Bill Urbakite, who said, see no reason why not. We operate with the same set of rules, and we'll be happy to discuss the AMA, Academy of Model Aeronautics Association rules. Mr. Hart can speak to those. We can talk with our finances. Mr. Adams can speak to those. The use of the place, Jonathan Fabian can speak to that activity. The organization itself, our vice president can speak to that. So we feel that we have made a reasonable use, a reasonable transmission, and in addition to what we were able to do before, with access to the lake, we can now offer the community access for watercraft use and waterborne aircraft use. So that's the essence of our combination, our request. Why limited access? And with your permission, I am assuming, Stephen, that each person has a copy of the lease in front of them. If you'll turn to item number 10, please. There's a sentence in there that I'd like to offer and comment on, and perhaps a rewording. We talk about the exclusive recreational use, and the operative word there is use, not exclusion. The operative word is exclusive use of the lake, and obviously you have to have a way to get to the lake. Limited use in terms of access, because as Jonathan can speak to, or any of us can speak to, when you go out to use your vehicle, typically you take along some spare parts. You take the vehicle, you may need a charging battery, which is pretty heavy to carry along. You have parts and pieces for your vehicle, whatever it is, air, ground, water. And it's difficult to walk into a place and carry all of that equipment along. And as Councilman Fabian reminded me, we have had exactly that kind of an operation and permission when we were at the lakes down by the Riverwalk. And for the courtesy and for our 2 new council members, I don't know if you're aware of the Riverwalk, but in the extreme south corners on the end of the rails to trails, there were, up to 2 years ago, 2 very nice lakes along there where the rotary pit, fire pit is and so forth. Then Mother Nature took over, and in the flood, the river broke through the Oxbow, dropped in, and those lakes are now someplace down in the Mississippi or the Missouri or somewhere. There are no more lakes there. The river course is there, and that wiped us out of our water facility. And we were using that for our sailboats. Dick, your sailboat is here. That requires a water depth of approximately 2 feet to accommodate the keel. We were using it for particularly boats. Where we are now, we are using it more for flying. Randy Edgington, I mentioned, has flown there a lot. We have about 6 flyers who use pontoon planes or so forth. So the wording there, and I'll take the responsibility and the blame for that, is awkward. When we say exclusive use of the recreational facility, it's use of the facilities, not exclusion of the people. We do ask for limited access, and that's why we've requested either some entrance gates or boulders at specific locations on the 2 roads that do lead from the outside toward the lake. I hope that's a clarification that won't cause us a stumbling block, but we'll be happy to discuss that. With that, Mr. Mayor, I suspect I've said enough. We welcome your comments, your questions. Stephen, we thank you and your staff again for the opportunity to be here this evening. And with that, questions back to you, sir.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Mend. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Is there any of your other group that would like to step up? And
I would like to ask Mr. Hart,
like
Dr.
Mr.
Hart,
Hart's.
to speak, Rich, to speak to the aspect of belonging to AMA and the insurance. Rich, a number of years ago, when he learned we were about to undertake this project in 2001, he wrote a letter from Indiana and said, "Eddie, I'm coming out to help." He's been a help ever since. He is our current president. So, Rich Hart.
I don't know if Steve got the insurance package yesterday or not. It came across my desk, so it's on its way. We've had it insured for the last couple of years with the 1838 Rendezvous people as the insured party. And of course, we've had the AMA insurance at the Modelers Park from day one because that's a requirement of our lease at the Modelers Park. The AMA insurance covers all aspects of operation for sites such as the Modelers Park, the lake, anything that can be involved with modeling and radio control. It's the Academy of Model Aeronautics is based in Muncie, Indiana. It's a national firm. Our national organization has about 450,000 members across the country, and they are the ones who conduct competitions. They set up informational programs and student programs and those kinds of things. One of the things that is outlined in the packet that we use to develop the insurance request that we present to them is the idea of limited access. Where we're at with the ponds or with the lake is that what we need is the ability to say to people who are there, we're having this activity today, we lease this area from the city, and please stay out of maybe an area that would be a safety area for flying. Please don't be fishing in an area or something like that. Not necessarily asking them to leave, but saying that we have a grant from the city to use the facility for our purposes at that point in time. When we would be there using the facilities, the gate would be open and it would come. We need to have one road closed or it's going to have to get improved because it's in really bad shape. So that would be the benefit even to the city there, because cars are using it now and bottoming out as they drive through. So that's the issue of, we really don't need exclusivity. We need the ability to use the site for our purposes when we want to, and the ability to depend that if we need to call to the police department or something and we've got somebody rowdy out there, that they'll come out and help us out. So I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have.
thank you, Mr. Hart. Appreciate it. Does any of the council have any questions for either Mr. Amend or Mr. Hart?
Well, again,
Yes.
I'll ask the new
Councilman Canan.
questions here. Sir, how many active members do you have?
35, that's predominantly flyers because we have not had an organized boating program going on. That's one of the goals that we have if we can secure the site, is to be able to expand. There are people in the community that I know of that if they had a place to consistently go, they'd be operating boats out there. So.
And I'm going to be honest with you, sir. I guess my problem is like I get the impression that we're trading one recreational activity for another. You know, if Mr. Weaver, when he was saying is that, you know, the area is currently being used by people that go out there and party and fish or have access to the Wind River through that location, to me that seems like one recreational activity that, again, a group of people or you know, a number of people might use, and we're trading that off for a recreational activity for a group of, you know, 30 plus. And, you know, that's my concern, is that balance there. You know, I understand you say, you know, you don't want exclusive, but at the same time, when you're not there, the gates are going to be closed, so they can no longer drive through that area. So if they do want to go down to the lake and have a picnic, they're, you know, leaving their car outside someplace and having to take the kids and take the picnic basket and chairs and whatever else to move to that area. If they want to go down to the river, they have to do the same thing. And the days that the gates are open because you're down there, now you're going to restrict what they can't do, because again, you don't want them fishing in the lake or running the dog in the lake, because if it's going to be in your hazard area. So I'll be honest with you, that's my concern there, is, you know, is trading one recreational activity for another.
All right, I don't have an answer to that.
Could I jump in?
Councilman Guard.
Wait, go ahead. I only know this because I recently bought a paddle boat, and my wife and I take it down, but there's, adjacent to this, there's 5 other ponds. Can anybody help me out? Isn't there 5 additional ponds that are just to the west of this? And this is a fairly new turnover to the city, and my complaint all the time is, everybody's heard me whine on, but how many ponds can we use? And so I think this is a wonderful suggestion, to the fact that I don't see the access to the Wind River as a great control there, and I don't know that you're going to be using it total. I don't think you're going to be using it all the time.
No, and quite frankly, in the 2 years that I've been going down there, I've never seen anybody go to the river.
Haven't seen
Even
my
if they
paddle
could
boat?
drive up to
It's hard
where
to believe
the
that you haven't
shelter
seen my
is.
paddle boat.
Pardon?
You haven't seen my paddle boat? It's a little blue boat.
Come on down.
Or I thought you'd saw me. But I guess what I'm trying to say is there's lots of access there for other activities, and lots of ponds available. And
But these particular ponds, there's fish in them, but they don't stock it. I think there's some carp in there. Probably came in from the flood.
I have not paddled through these new ponds, but there's plenty of places to paddle there, and I think that this would be a wonderful opportunity. Can you give us an idea how often you would control the access?
Would be most, what do you mean by control? Have the gate open, you mean?
Yeah, when there would be landings.
Most of
and
the time, the
activities.
activity's on Sunday,
So
you know,
The days
at
that
least a couple times, 3 times a month. In the middle of the summer, probably every Sunday.
And I guess my heartburn to that would be the trying to get across to the public that we are going to have an activity today, and if you're going to swim, which I've never seen anybody do but a few times I've been there, would you use another pond? And so, you know, I don't know that there's going to be a great impact there. So,
Right, there's a pond actually organized for swimming as a little beach area that the 1838 people did develop for that particular purpose.
And so I would have to say that it's a wonderful idea in my mind's eye to get some use on those ponds and get people down there to participate.
Did put a shelter down there.
Okay. Is there any other questions, comments?
Your Honor, just so I'm
Councilman
clear,
Christensen.
the gates will be at the Big Bend sign, also a gate at the lower end of this map?
Well, it's our recommendation, unless the city wants to improve what is used as a road or a pathway to gain access to it now from the north, that be blocked off, not with a gate, but with something permanent. Otherwise, it's going to have to be graded and put a lot of work into getting it fit to drive on. I go over it sometimes, but I've got a Jeep Wrangler.
This one
and
he's
it,
talking about.
you know, it takes four-wheel drive to get through.
So
So
that's-
there would just be the one gate that's there now,
East, that one's-
or we could move it closer to the pond if we needed to.
So people would have access to these other 3 ponds?
Sure.
They would have access to those 3? Because I'm worried about, there's that tournament, there's an organization, I think it's Injury Prevention,
But
that
they
does
do they do that in the stocked ponds.
Okay, and that's these other 3?
The other
Right.
5.
Okay, all right. So it'd just be this last pond between 1, 2, 3, 4, corner 1, 2, 3, 4, okay.
There's a pit toilet there.
Come up to the microphone if you could, please. Can you state your name for the record?
Yes,
too?
my name is Scott Jackson. I'm vice president of the club.
Great. Thank you,
I was
Scott.
just going to make a point. We already have a gate there with a walk around that we installed 2 years ago. And it's on the map. You'll see it, see the little tiny square there. Well, that's a pit toilet that's used by the people that use those other 2 fishing ponds.
Okay.
So what we're suggesting is that we block off the other road, which is east of those 2 ponds, the fishing ponds, and we block off the road that's really a trail, almost a 2-track trail that runs along the fence for the shooting range. Block those 2 off so the only access is through the gate that we've already installed there. So,
So you'd go in front of the construction company
right,
down,
right. There's a
the-
sign that says fishing ponds.
yeah,
It's there now. And you would go down that road to our lock gate and then go through the gate if you had a motor vehicle. But that gate is set up so that it can be walked around, which is, interestingly, it's very, very similar to the setup we had with the, down at the river. And in fact, the walk around is still there, even though we no longer use the place because it's a river, not ponds. So we're trying to replicate to a degree the access that we had with the Riverwalk site. Now, another point I wanted to make, anybody that wants to swim in that pond is taking a chance because we don't know what's in there. And there are other places to swim that have already been provided by 1838 that are much more desirable than the pond we're asking to use for boating and flying. The benefit to us as aviators with our model, that's my model plane, by the way, is it's an elliptical lake of about 8 acres. And we've set up that shelter in the center of it. So it's great for visibility for flying your planes, sailboats, and Mrs. Hart's fireboat. And that's the advantage we see. Now, the other point I wanted to make that Rich touched on is, since we're taking, with a lease, we would take liability for whatever goes on at that pond. And we provide insurance to cover that liability. So I think we have, in fairness, can ask in return that we can sign access to state that we don't allow swimming, we don't allow drinking, we don't allow fires, and all those things that tend to go on there now that it's not under any kind of control. Questions? Oops.
Yes, Mr. Larson.
What are we
Councilman
doing
Larson.
are we abandoning our current facility next to Walmart?
Oh, absolutely not.
Okay.
That-
So this would be an addition
Yes,
for the primary usage of the boats and the pontoon boats.
exactly. The original concept of the facility north of Walmart was to have a lake.
Yeah, but it doesn't.
But it doesn't, and it never will, because it's just no water. So, this would be just an adjunct to.
I see the picture that I have here on the shelter. It doesn't look like there's a lot of storage there of anything, batteries or permanent. So you would make additional down there if you had exclusionary rights, right?
We would have that capability, yes. And if we only go in and out as modelers, this is Mr. Jackson's. I wanted to show you because we had questions about the size. What do you do out there? About an average size. Mr. Larson, your question is very cogent. If we go in just for an afternoon, we take along our plane, our batteries, our repair kits, our lunch, chair, and that kind of thing, in and out. If we know that we have
Eddie, could you speak into the microphone? We have a listening audience at home and they may not be hearing this.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
If we have sufficient and adequate and appropriate storage, then there are things we could leave there as we do at the Modelers Park out north. Out in the North Park, we do have our lawn mowing equipment, our chairs, our flags, all of those sorts of things which we can store there. So your question is very pertinent, and thank you. Yes, that would be an option. We might or might not need it, but for now, we do have the shade, which is we own, which is there. But we have that option if we know that we have assurance that we have security and a safe place to be.
One last question. I don't like the word exclusionary because model planes are kind of nice to watch. What opportunities are there just for people to come in and watch? I mean, if you watch that land and somebody, took it in at the wrong place, that thing would be scattered all over the 8 acres.
Which is another reason why we're asking for space.
Yeah.
And there is space. There's approximately 7 or 8 acres of the lake we're intending and are using now and requesting to continue to use so that we do have airspace. Yes, indeed. These are flying objects. We know that. This is typical of the size. Some will be larger, some will be smaller. And if Mr. Jackson would pick up my little dinky boat, the boats will range from these little runabouts, which we will use as a retrieval vehicle, up to this really nice fireboat that Rich Hart's wife, Pat, owns. By the way, our I'll call it a hobby, is gender-free, age-free, color-free. We ask for members. We do require membership for the purpose of its insurance. Mm-hmm. I think, Mr. Larson, you would agree with me, we'd be foolish to run a program like this with flying missiles without insurance. And Mr. Hart has already spoken to that. Thank you for your question.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the council?
Yes, Your Honor.
Why don't we let
I'm sorry.
Councilman Smith go ahead.
Just a question on the two concerns that Stephen addressed that the city staff was concerned about. One on the access to the Wind River. From that property, was the concern more for city access or just public access, or both?
Well, we were looking at public access, Your Honor.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Councilman Christensen.
However, I'd like to make the point, we're not preventing public access. We're only limiting public access, just like we did with the Riverwalk. In that case, the modelers had the opportunity to take their vehicles in with all the equipment, which is tons of stuff. But if someone wants to go fishing in the river, I don't know how heavy paddle boats are, but if you can carry your paddle boat, you could even walk through and get down to the river after you get over the barbed wire fence. So that's, we're not preventing access, we're only asking to limit it, because we will be taking responsibility for liability for that location.
And that's vehicular access that you're wanting to limit, correct?
We're limiting the vehicle access,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay.
Okay. Councilman Christensen.
Your Honor, the road coming in through those trailers and the construction company and by those homes and whatnot, who owns that road? Who is responsible for maintaining that?
Your Honor, the road does not go, that direction anymore. If you go down there, you go all the way past, Mr. Bornhoff's construction company to where B&B used to have their crusher, and you go straight where, on the map that we provided, it says Big Bend sign.
Sure.
You go right, that's the road you go in, and that's
would
on
be
the
the
city
road.
of, yeah, that's on the city of Riverton's property, that,
And that's the one you would take to the fishing ponds that Stephen just learned. That's where the fish are.
right, yeah, they rerouted the road within the last, I don't know how long. It
Yeah.
was kind of a surprise to us when we went out there and looked at it, that the road goes that direction now.
So the entrance that you're talking about would go through this Big Bend sign,
Yeah, you go down, right.
past that last trailer, the gray trailer, and then take a right in behind that?
Well, right, and then you go down to where that little pit toilet is and hang a left, and there's a locked gate there that we put in about 2 years ago.
I was just down there. I was trying to remember the lock gate. The only reason I was asking, if you came in the old entrance to the fishing ponds, there's just so many kids that live there. I just increasing the traffic through there. I was a little bit worried.
Blocked off now, you can't.
Well, if you went through Bornhoff's and that other trailer court, you go in front of all those houses and take a right.
Turn
Blocked
where
off, it's all changed.
That's blocked off.
Bornhoff's is,
Uh-huh.
to block that off.
There's two
Jared.
big rocks down there now.
Oh, God.
We we're just down there.
Anyway, there's a sign there that says fishing ponds,
Oh,
and that's
really?
where you turn right.
But here's Bornhoff's.
One question I have, who put up the sign that is of the picture here?
But this lady's gonna get
The Big Bend fishing ponds, is that something that you put up or this
No, that's been, I don't know who put that up.
Pretty sure Lou Deal.
Lou Deal?
There's a big,
Nobody knows who put up that size sign on?
I think it was
How does she get out?
Mr. Mayor, if I may respond, I suspect that was the Kiwanis Club, which sponsors the Kids Hooked on Fishing program.
I see.
And Lou Deal is a very active member in that particular activity.
Okay,
And that's a sign that lets people go in, and it says at their own risk to participate in fishing in the 3 ponds that are west. And Mary Ellen, you spoke to that, and Councilman Christopher, you spoke to that, and those are the stocked ponds. We're east of there.
Okay,
It's a
here it is.
separate exit, separate entrance. Does that clarify?
Sure. I just was worried about there's so many kids right there that.
another question that I have, or I guess it's been quite a while since I've been down there and driven around all the different ponds, and I know they've done a lot of changes, so I think it would be worthwhile for us to use this next week or so to maybe have a tour down there so that we can see. I realize that it's hard water at this time of the year, but I'd like to be able to drive around and see what it is we're talking about, what kind of work is going to have to be done. And I just have to ask myself why this can't be, gentlemen, excuse me. Thank you. I'm just wondering why this can't be done similar to a shelter in the park. Where we have a lot of city shelters in parks, and you register out. If we had a standing registration, you could use it that way. I guess the heartburn that the city is having, at least I am, is that the difference between the modelers park that you have out at the Honor Farm, that's state property, that's not city property. And so that's a different animal, where this is actually city property. And I think the council, at least I feel a little obligation and responsibility to make it available to our entire population in the city. And when we start talking about exclusivity and whatnot, it makes me a little nervous. I understand what you're talking about, having, if you put up a shelter or something that you put batteries in and you expect it to be there when you come back next week, and so you want to have some control. I understand that completely, but I don't.
I think it's kind of interesting. It's one of our original conversations with Bill Urbicite is he suggested we pursue a lease on that because he wanted somebody to take responsibility for cleaning it up.
Sure.
And you know, we're raising our hands.
No, and I'm not suggesting at all that I'm opposed to it.
Yeah.
These are just questions that I have right now. And it was they're just old gravel pits that have been filled in with water. And to get this kind of use out of them, I think is wonderful. But I do think that, as a city, we have an obligation to try to provide what assets we have to our entire community. And when we pick a particular group and set it aside and say, no, the rest of you can't come here, that bothers me a little bit.
Yeah. We're not, again, we're limiting, but we're not saying you can't come here.
Yes.
In fact, we're encouraging people to come there. When we're flying, we encourage them to come down and watch. And just like we do out north, when the gates, doggone it, when the gates open, the public is welcome to come in and watch and be a part of it.
Part of the program from the AMA is that we have to submit a drawing that shows the safety area, just like we do at the Toddler's Park. There's a safety line, if you're thinking of the Modelers Park, where the pilots stand, there's a safety line that we cannot fly behind, because that's where spectators are, that's where the pits are. The same thing has to be laid out because we are flying planes at the lake, so we'll have to establish a pilot's line, a safety line that extends as far east and as far west as the eye can see, so that we'll have a place for spectators. We just can't have them on the wrong side of the safety line. It would be like having people out in the grass area at the Modelers Park. So that's the reason, we're not looking to limit people coming in. We want people to come in if we're there, because that's how we generate interest in our hobby.
But at times that you're not there, if I get a model boat and I want to take it down to the lake, you're suggesting that I can't do it.
No, we're not suggesting that at all.
Unless you're there.
We're suggesting that if you take it down there and we're not there, you take responsibility for any liability.
Quite frankly, if somebody calls me up and says, I want to go run my boat, I'll go open the gate for them.
Yes. No, I understand you'd be very accommodating that way.
For out of town.
Sure.
People
No,
come to fly.
But that's the kind of thing, if you just want to go down there on your own.
Your Honor.
Yes, Councilman Gard.
Let me ask for some clarification on that. The way I understand what you're asking for is simply that when you have activities there, you would have the ability to control the landscape.
Right.
And so you don't have anybody standing in the wrong spot that
Right.
could get hit by an airplane.
Right.
But they will know when those activities are
Right.
on.
And, if we run into somebody who's belligerent about it, we're going to look to getting some support for that, not causing any disturbance ourselves or anything like that.
And let's not talk about belligerent, because we are a council. We do that personally. But I guess what I would like to point out is that when they aren't in use of it, it's going to be open to the public.
Right.
And if Sundays, occasional Sundays, and other special days, which I would think that you would probably be wise to stay off the fishing derby, is probably not a day that you would pick. And so even if somebody wanted to slip over there and fish, they certainly could. And they wouldn't be in violation of any of the requests that you're making. You're only asking for exclusive use of this during the activity hours that you put on.
Right.
Correct?
Right.
And so those aren't terribly long hours or long days, and you really do need that exclusive use. You surely don't want somebody out there with his paddle boat while you're landing an airplane.
Right.
And so I really don't see that it's a domination of the pond as much as it is a special use of the pond.
Right. And, we would expect to put signage around our area for those things that are rules. We have to post rules anyway at the Modelers Park. We would do the same thing. And in a way, it would behoove the city to support us in doing that, to limit swimming in certain areas, because if you don't, you're carrying that liability. And
There's a lot of places there to swim, and so, you know, the problem is being down there and saying, you know, oh, you're in the wrong pond, you're gonna have to swim
Right.
over there. Somebody's gonna have to be there to catch that, to report that problem, and so I think that's just looking way down the road. Is what we're looking at now is you've got to have an exclusive use of a pond for a certain period of time.
right,
And it's not for 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It's for a limited period.
right.
People can still schedule this either through you or through the city, could still schedule this pond for usage if they had a special use for it, I would suppose.
Sure.
Your liability insurance wouldn't cover them. It would only cover your activities.
It
Is that
only covers our activities.
correct? And
The
so,
rest of the time is the city's responsibility.
so we have a city pond, and the only real restriction is you can't drive around it. You've got some gates up that it keeps people from driving
Right.
through and up to your facilities, which is probably the only way you're not going to get vandalized heavily.
Yeah, and we really don't expect to provide what we've got at the Modelers Park because we have shelters there, we have electric there to the shelters. We're not gonna bring electric into that area. There's just too many opportunities for vandalism, although we probably could bring, like we do at the Modelers Park, a container in, have that locked up for storage of things on site. We haven't developed the program to that point yet, so.
Well, and I hate to even throw this bomb out there, but if by chance we were ever able to develop the frontage on Federal, we would at the very least restrict your access to your current Modelers Park.
Right.
And so I think there's plenty of room behind that we can still keep you there and use the frontage of Federal.
You need to understand the frontage area of the Modelers Park along the highway is a wetlands.
I understand that.
Yeah.
I'm very familiar with that. Familiar with the grader that we lost across the street also, why we built the Hampton Inn. And so I'm here to tell you, if somebody wants sufficiently to use the property, they'll find a way to do that.
Yeah.
And so all I was wanting to do is protect your interest. And this looks like it may be able to do that for the long term. If we have to accommodate you with some landing strips or something down there, we could do that also. And so I think it's a wonderful activity, brings a lot of people to town. It's a limited use, and personally, I would be in favor of supporting you. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Your Honor.
Councilman Fabian.
I guess I understand the, concern with the word restriction that everybody keeps coming to, and I think it needs to be very clear that the only restriction would be how far you can drive a vehicle, not the rest of it, unless there's an event going on. And in those particular cases, I don't see it any differently than the car show during the rendezvous. I mean, we block off Main Street for blocks, and we don't let people drive through there because it's not safe for them to do so in that environment. And this is no different. To say, you know what, if you want, you're welcome to be here, you're welcome to be a part of what we're doing, please stand back. Because let me tell you, if that airplane hits you, you're going to the hospital at the very least. And so it's not, I guess I don't see it as something that is limiting the public's ability to enjoy an area as much as saying enjoy it, and then when there's an event going on, we have rules in place to keep you safe. And we do that all the time.
And that's why I was suggesting that to treat it as a shelter. If I go down and sign up and say I want to use the shelter in Sunset Park, then I don't expect the rest of the public to have access to that shelter. That's a shelter that I'm asking to have private access to, and that's what you're suggesting here. So to me, they're very similar kind of an activity, but after you go away, then that shelter is available to the public.
Well,
and that's the only point I was trying to make.
Right now, we're trying to protect the shelter that we have there. And before the gate went up, people have tried to
We have
Guard to
vandalism
it.
on our shelters as
Yeah.
well.
guard to it and pull it away. So, we would just rather not have vehicles down there all the time.
Yeah, no, I understand that, and that's the dilemma that.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other comments or questions?
You need to come out when we're going in the summer and watch my wife with her fireboat. The monitor on the front will shoot water 10 feet.
Really? In case somebody gets on fire.
Dangerous motor.
Your Honor, I was wondering what to get my wife for Valentine's Day, and I think that'd be a wonderful gift for her.
Appreciate that.
Your Honor, if I may, thank you again for inviting us to come and make our presentation. Thanks for listening. And let me counter with our last closing word, and that's to offer to host your tour, Mr. Mayor, if you choose to go individually or as a group or whatever. If you'd like to go now, wear your boots and your winter clothes. If you'd like to come down in the springtime, wear whatever you choose, but please wear something. But come in the summertime and we'll serve you a hot dog. We'd like to have you come to both facilities. Mr. Larson, your question was very pertinent. Absolutely, we want spectators. And the third invitation I would ask is so that you can actively participate, please join the Modelers Park Association. $35 a year for the entire member. Chief Broadhead is a member, and his son is already soloed. And we are trying to reach out to the young people and provide a niche recreation oriented around radio control. That's specifically who we are, what we're trying to do. And if we can work together and ask your support, we can simply expand what we're already doing and add watercraft to our aircraft and groundcraft we already have. Again, we thank you very much.
I was thinking, Mr. Mend, that you're probably wanting this lease before spring, right?
Yes.
All right, and that was the only reason that I was suggesting that possibly we go down there before spring so that we know, exactly what the layout of the land is and everything. By spring, it will be a done deal if it's going to be done, so.
Yes, and we would like to, but my offer is to go at your convenience and your call. Give us a buzz, and we could arrange transportation if necessary with the Suburban, something like that. But I quite agree with you, Mr. Mayor. It's helpful to see.
That's right.
And Councilmember Christensen, your question about location of gates or boulders or whatever access, very pertinent. And the map will help you some, but by looking at the map, you'll see that the fishing ponds are ahead, and if someone like Councilman Guard wants to use a paddle boat, you can use the North Lake, which there's a confluence of the water between the lake we're talking about and the North Lake. So we're not shutting off people. We think we're expanding what we're already trying to do. So, Mr. Mayor, if you'd give us a call, if you want to set up a date and arrangements, we'll be happy to take you.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
And if you call me in, if it's 40 below, I'll ask a staff member to.
You'll go alone.
We'll do it. Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming this evening.
Your Honor.
Yes,
I just want to say, I think some of the neighbors are buying some boats and whatnot. As I went down to talk to them, there's a lot of excitement about it, so it's...
Thank you, and may I add one other, I closed a moment ago, but may I make one other offer? Particularly, our two new council members will not know, simply because you were not here, but a number of years ago, when, in cooperation with Central Wyoming College, we offered a summertime program for young boys and girls. We had 12 and 14 students enrolled, where the college, through what they call the Gear Up program, bought airplane kits. We, as a club, took those youngsters into our care for a series of weeks, taught them how to build the kit, taught them how to fly, and took them to the Modelers Park, and when they had flown, gave them the plane. 3 summers we did that. And now your observation, and I quite agree with you, our belief and our hope is that when this becomes available, there will be people who don't really want to risk a flight, but would be happy to explore on water. So my other offer is, let us help you and tell the people that we'd like to help them learn how to build, how to operate, and sort of counsel them in how to get into radio control sports. we particularly recognize that a lot of young people, particularly boys, are very much oriented toward round ball sports, that sort of thing. We have tennis, we have soccer, we have football, we have swimming, we have all kinds of things. But for those youngsters who are more oriented toward the technical side, electronics, and particularly aeronautical engineering, we are hoping to provide a sanctuary for those types of kids that may not actively be involved. And so our offer is extended to all of you as families, and please, through you to others, let us help. Because we'd like to have more people. It's a kind of a selfish offer in a way, because we want people to share our joy of the hobby. Well, thank you for your observation.
It sounds to me like you're trying to get other people hooked on your drug, Eddie.
Mr. Mayor and I go to the same church. He knows me too well. Yes, we are, but it's a fun thing. And again, we thank you for your time and your interest in and your support of our activity.
Yeah, thank you for coming, gentlemen. Okay, the chair would entertain a motion to adjourn the work session this evening.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.